Welcome to Weekly Pulse from the USA Today Sports Network. I'm Trista Craig. What is Weekly Pulse? It's your guide to what's happening in sports. Each week, we look forward to bringing you a combination of breaking news, analysis, and one-on-one interviews with some of the biggest names in sports. In our first episode, we're covering postseason baseball, the 2019 hockey season, and of course, plenty of football. USA Today's Steve Gardner will share the inside scoop on the Yankees-Twins divisional matchup. Giants legend Tiki Barber ranks his top 5 running backs. Hockey Hall of Famer journalist Kevin Allen, who knows hockey better than anyone, by the way, will give us his 5 hot takes on the new season. And finally, the NFL is turning 100. To celebrate this milestone, I sat down with 3 USA Today top sports writers as they debate who really is America's team. Whenever anything happens, on or off the field, don't worry, our reporters around the country have you covered.
What a bad loss for the Dallas Cowboys at the Superdome on Sunday night. The Cowboys were embarrassed in falling from the NFL's undefeated ranks. Let us count some ways. Reigning NFL rushing champ EZEKIEL Elliott, he averaged a career-low 1.9 yards per carry. Dak Prescott, he cooled off. For the first time this season, the Cowboys quarterback did not throw for a touchdown pass. The Cowboys only mustered about 250 yards against a much-maligned Saints defense. There were 3 turnovers, and to add injury to insult, All-Pro left tackle Tyron Smith was carted off in the final minutes with a high ankle sprain that threatens to put him out for an extended period of time. No, it was not a pretty outing for the Cowboys, and EZEKIEL Elliott did not mince words as he put the onus on the offense, adding that the defense played its tail off. Now, Dak Prescott, he promised that the confidence of this team won't be shaken.
Hi, I'm Sal Majorana from the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, and this is what I'm hearing. There was the big talk in the locker room was the hit that Josh Allen took in the fourth quarter, knocked him out of the game, a vicious hit. Several players that I talked to, Micah Hyde being one, said that, look, that kind of hit just can't happen in the NFL. My colleague Leo Roth went into the Patriots locker room. Jonathan Jones didn't think there was anything wrong with it. It was a bad, brutal hit. They've got to get that out of the league. The Bills were upset about it. They lost their starting quarterback. Matt Barkley came in. The Bills had an opportunity. They had 3 possessions in the fourth quarter to take the lead. Couldn't get it done. Their 3-0 season is now a 3-1 season while the Patriots march on to 4-0. I'm Sal Majorana, and that's what I'm hearing in the Buffalo Bills locker room.
Pelicans rookie Zion Williamson addressed reporters at Media Day on Monday, and this is what I'm hearing. Williamson told reporters that this whole experience has been fun, from getting drafted, his brief participation in Summer League, getting to know his new teammates, and even reaching endorsement deals with companies like Jordan Brand and Gatorade. But he also said the dream was to get to the NBA and make an impact, and he told reporters that that process begins now. Alvin Gentry said that they're not expecting Williamson to put on a cape and be the savior of this franchise, and Griffin said they just want consistency from Williamson. They've put a great supporting cast around him, veterans like J.J. Redick, Derrick Favors, E'Twaun Moore, and Drew Holiday. Now, the Pelicans just want to get Williamson on the court, not put too much pressure on him, but also try to win basketball games and make the playoffs.
I think we can all agree that Week 4 was just a little weird. There were some upsets that caught people completely by surprise. We even had 2 of the top teams in the power rankings, 2 of the top teams in the NFL overall, potentially on the verge of losing their games. Now the Patriots and the Chiefs each escaped their games with victories, so they're fine, but that doesn't mean that we can't take a look at Week 4's risers and fallers. And we have to start in Cleveland, where the Browns arguably put up the biggest statement game of the week. They went to Baltimore on the road in a battle for first place in the AFC North, and they dominated the Ravens 40-25. This was a game in which the offensive line for Cleveland, which had been a problem throughout the first 3 weeks, responded. Nick Chubb went off, and Baker Mayfield, who had been criticized a lot for leaving the pocket early when he felt phantom pressure, stayed in and delivered balls accurately. One team that's dropping, it's gotta be Houston. even with Laramie Tunsil, even with Titus Howard and Max Sharping, it's 2 high draft picks in the offensive line, the Texans still cannot protect Deshaun Watson. Watson maybe has to get rid of the ball a little bit faster, but he's been sacked 18 times, which is just way too much. A loss against the Panthers doesn't help their cause. It maybe wasn't pretty, but I'm just buying this Minshew mania. It's just been so much fun to watch. And for the Jaguars to go into Denver, which is always a tough place to play, face a 14-point deficit and still come back, I think it says a lot that this Jaguars team could just potentially be fine, even without Nick Foles. A big reason why Leonard Fournette went off against the Broncos, and if he can continue to regain that momentum and become a dominant rusher, watch out for Jacksonville. You just know if you're the Rams that Jared Goff sometimes is going to have inconsistent games. But really the most concerning part about their loss against the Buccaneers on Sunday, in which they allowed 55 points, was that defense. Aaron Donald admitted that he needs to get going, he needs to generate more pressure, but just Jameis Winston and Bruce Arians, that's a nice pairing, but there's no reason why the Buccaneers should be dropping 55 on you at home.
The NHL season starts this week, and I have 5 points to make. Number 1, this will be the season of the Colorado Avalanche. Look for Nathan MacKinnon to register 100 or more points, for the team to have 50 or more wins, and for Cale Makar to be the NHL Rookie of the Year. And I think this team will be a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. I think it has a chance to be this season's version of the St. Louis Blues. 2, the Tampa Bay Lightning are still an exceptional team. I know everybody thinks because they lost in the first round last season that they may not have what it takes to win in the playoffs. But this is the most talented team in the league, and they certainly have an understanding of what it takes to win in the postseason. 3, the Pittsburgh Penguins are at the crossroads. Evgeny Malkin is 33, Sidney Crosby is 32, and I think the Penguins are trying to decide this season where they're at and where they're going to be moving forward. I think this is still a playoff team, but it's going to be tough sledding in order to make it. 4, Andrei Svechnikov may score 35 goals this season. This guy is the most dedicated athlete on his team, even as a young player. He's got a terrific shot. He reminds me a little bit of a young Alex Ovechkin. It's hard to live up to a guy like Ovechkin who scores 50 or more, but if anybody can do it, it's Svechnikov. And 5, the Vegas Golden Knights may be the comeback team of the season. Now, it's hard to say that about a team that's only in its 3rd season, but they had 51 wins in its first season. Of course, they reached the Stanley Cup final, 43 wins last season. I think they'll be in the middle, somewhere in the 47 to 49 range, and I think they have a chance to reach the final again. I really do. I mean, I think this is a team that's set up to be successful in the playoffs.
All right, Tiki, we want you to rank the top 5 running backs in the league right now.
Right now.
Your top 5.
I value pass catching. I value all purpose. So, 1, 2, Zeke, I guess I gotta put there.
So you think Alvin Kamara is
4.
the first best running back in the league?
Alvin Kamara is the smoothest runner I've ever seen in my life. And if I had to pick another sneaky one, because I'd only do 4 here, I love this guy.
Wow.
And you know why? For a guy who's 250 pounds, 6'3", 250, he has thousands, it feels like, of big plays, meaning plus 50-yard runs. He's a big guy, but you need a guy like this, like Derrick Henry, and the Tennessee Titans have one. So that's my list right now.
So you think that Derrick Henry is the most underrated running back in the league right now?
He is, because we don't look at running backs like him anymore and say, well, he's the elite guy. We look at guys like KAMARA and Christian McCaffrey and Saquon, who are versatile, who do all these different things. But you know what wins football games? Field position, not turning the ball over, and 4-minute offense. 4-minute offense is when you have a lead at the end of the game, you turn around and hand it off to a big son of a gun and say, don't mess it up. You know what he does in 4-minute offense? He breaks 50-yard touchdowns and steps on your throat.
Ooh.
Derrick Henry is a great player, and he doesn't get enough credit for it.
Despite dealing with injury after injury, the New York Yankees didn't make excuses. They just kept winning, 103 times to be exact. Now, they're about as healthy as they've been all season, with Giancarlo Stanton, Luis Severino and company back close to 100%. They have baseball's highest scoring offense during the regular season, and they'll get to use that advantage by playing in Yankee Stadium. On the pitching side, the Yankees have a deep and overpowering bullpen, which will come in handy with 18-game winner Domingo Germán missing the playoffs because of a domestic violence violation. Under rookie manager Rocco Baldelli, the Minnesota Twins return to the postseason for the first time since 2017, and for the first time since 2010 as AL Central champions. This is just a totally different Twins team with 8 players with at least 20 home runs, led by newcomer Nelson Cruz's 41. This is a Twins team that had been out-homered by its opponents in 26 of the past 27 seasons. Pitching is also a strong point for the Twins, who've embraced power arms and have put together a bullpen of little-known but very effective relievers. Expect power versus power, as the only 2 teams in baseball history to hit over 300 home runs in a season match up. The last 6 times the Twins have made the playoffs, however, they've been eliminated by these same New York Yankees.
So in 2005, Reggie Bush won the Heisman, later vacated. This isn't a slight against Reggie Bush. I mean, I saw him play. He was off the charts. It's more about what Vince Young accomplished that year at Texas and obviously against USC when they met in the Rose Bowl. As the architect and the centerpiece of an offense that was dynamic, one of the best in program history, and obviously good enough to beat up on a USC team that everyone thought going into the game was the best of all time. In 1992, Gino Torretta won the Heisman for Miami based on the fact that Miami was on the way to a national championship, really a dominant football team. On the other hand, San Diego State and a running back named Marshall Faulk, they went 5-5-1. Still, Faulk led the NCAA in rushing, obviously in rushing yards per game, put together a season and a sort of skill package that you'd see on display throughout his Hall of Fame NFL career. In 1980, Herschel Walker took college football and really all of sports by storm as a true freshman for Georgia. Yet he didn't win the Heisman and went to another running back, George Rogers from South Carolina. Legendary figure, still, Herschel Walker, 1980. Dominant, running people over. I mean, destroying people as an 18-year-old. We know why he didn't win in 1980, and that's because he was a freshman. In 2019, that same impact, he might very well win it. So the biggest snub for me of all time came in 1956, and this is the year Paul Hornung won the award for Notre Dame. Notre Dame that year went 2-8. So no matter what Paul Hornung did as a player and as good as he was, he really shouldn't have won the thing. The guy who should have, Jim Brown, probably heard of him, played running back at Syracuse. That year, they went 7-2, finished in the top 10. He set school records for rushing yards in a season, yards per carry on a season, and single game touchdowns, single game points. Jim Brown should have won it that year over Paul Hornung. I mean, 7-2 versus 2-8. He's Jim Brown, all those records. Really, I mean, come on. Biggest miss of all time in Heisman history.
Uniforms are synonymous with team branding, so as we unveil the best and worst uniforms, let's talk about branding. Are the Cowboys really America's team? JB, I'm going to send this off to you because
The numbers would suggest that the Cowboys still are America's team when you look at the TV ratings, BAFO ratings. You look at the fact that Forbes magazine, again, in its most recent valuation of franchises, has the Cowboys as not only the most valuable sports franchise in America, but most valuable in the entire world, okay? So all of those numbers favor the Cowboys, but there's this other number that just kind of just gnaws at me, and it's like 0 Super Bowls in like 20 years, okay? And so, yeah, the Cowboys are the most popular franchise. They're also the franchise that people love to hate. And so in a way, yes, they are still America's teams, because when they look at the top-rated TV shows of any year, and the top-rated sports shows, the Cowboys are still the biggest, most consistent draw, despite the fact that the Patriots win the Super Bowls and other teams play the Patriots in the Super Bowls.
Where did America's team come from? I have a feeling it came out of Dallas, like somebody in the Dallas media relations. I look at teams like the branding, and especially being in a Sunbelt city like Phoenix, and for years the Cardinals were bad, so the other team really played home games all the time. It's a team that can take over the other team's stadium. It's the Steelers when they come almost anywhere. It's the Packers when they go almost anywhere. The Cowboys, obviously, still do that. It's those iconic teams like that. I don't think it's just one team that can say, we're this and we're that. I think there are a few blue bloods in the league.
Well, in fact, I don't think there is an America's team anymore, unless it's like an Olympic team or something, because, and even that's got to be a pretty tall order, because I think, again, the fractured nature of our media. Back in the day, by the way, I'll grant you that the Cowboys used to be America's team. As kids, we're watching this stuff, right? And they're on TV a lot. Of course, Thanksgiving was always about the Cowboys, so you had to watch them even if you didn't really care, because they're on your TV and the TV's on because everyone's cooking the turkey, et cetera, et cetera. They were good. They had superstar players. I mean, going back to Don Meredith, obviously Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, so many others over the years. So they won. They had Tom Landry. You had all the trappings of greatness and of American success and American athletic success. Now, as you mentioned, Jared, most important point, America loves winning. They ain't winning. They're not winning the Super Bowl. But if you can watch every little thing about the team that you love. You do not have to have a national scope. It's a very, very, it's all about this. The tweets, the whatever you're looking at is all for the team you love. You love the Steelers, it's nonstop Steelers. And so as we are less communal and less around the water cooler and more with our noses into our phones, I don't think we will ever have a team that captures our attention the way the Cowboys did, what was that, 30 some years ago?
Yeah, but there are still some teams, and the Cowboys, I would say, kind of lead the way in moving the needle more than other teams. But I get your point, and I think that's a real valid point in terms of how connected we all are with technology and how times have changed from that standpoint. And then there are some franchises that they're popular. It's hot and cold, and you look at the run of the Patriots for the past 20 years, and it's incredible. But if you go 20 years before that, not so incredible. And so the Cowboys, the fact that they've been able to sustain this from the Tex Schramm, Landry era, and to answer your question, America's team came from NFL Films, trying to come up with a title for the highlight film back in the 70s. And someone in a brainstorming session said, okay, let's try this America's team thing. And of course, Tex Schramm loved it. And then they took it to another level. But when the Cowboys floundered and Jerry Jones buys the team, one of the big challenges for him was to be able to, recapture that magic that they had from a marketing standpoint. And winning did help that. They won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, and that got the Cowboys to, kind of re-energize, themselves as this great marketable franchise. But like I said, 20 years. And one of the things that Jerry Jones said to me recently was just so crazy, because I'm like, Jerry, can you guys sustain this? And I've asked him this question now probably every year, because I have to keep asking it. But during training camp or whatever, how long can you sustain this popularity without winning Super Bowls? And I remember one time he looked up at me and he said, you know what? I'm going to quote Tex Schramm. He put it on Tex Schramm. He says, "This would be a hell of a business if we didn't have to play those damn football games." But to that, he was acknowledging that. It is a concern, and he went on to tell me that it's kind of like you wonder, what the point of demarcation is, the line of demarcation in terms of when people will follow your team or not, because there are players there with the Cowboys who weren't even born when they were last relevant, and that's crazy.
In your time covering sports and covering the NFL specifically, what moments stick out to you as teams transcending sports and captivating their city, especially around tragedy?
Ooh, around tragedy.
Well, I'll start, and first just a quick historic reference going all the way back to the bombing of Pearl Harbor. There's a great story about Washington's NFL team and the announcements that were going on during the game. General so-and-so, please report, General whatever. They were calling them all in because the Japanese had just bombed Pearl Harbor, and they got to leave the football game, the NFL game. So this goes back a long way. They had to go back to, obviously, to get involved in a war, because now, of course, the U.S. was in a war in 1941. So it goes back that far. Certainly the Saints come to mind. and after Katrina, and the way the city was able to rally around that team, and of course not only the team but the stadium, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you've got the Superdome that was home to so many people when they were displaced, and the controversy. Mrs. Bush, was talking about all that. So you have this again, this backdrop, this whole storyline set not just around the success of the Saints and rallying around their local team, but also the actual stadium and what it had meant and how it had been damaged, and how, of course, it also signified rebirth when the Saints were able to.
And I've never been a big Paul Tagliabue fan, but the commissioner at the time, he was smart enough to realize what the Saints meant to that city and took steps to keep them there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, and I was just thinking of it when she said it, that, Tagliabue had a role in that because Tom Benson, the Saints owner, was really considering moving his franchise, and they went to San Antonio for that 1 year after Katrina struck. But there was real consideration to just moving and being gone for good. And like you said, Tagliabue stepped in and says, no, the NFL can't abandon this city now. And as we know, New Orleans is one of the great Super Bowl
and the players, the Saints, actual players were smart enough and self-aware enough to know how much that meant. They wanted to stay there, led by Drew Brees, living in the city, lobbying for the city.
Do you think how does the Saints Katrina connection compare to you guys with the Giants and 9/11?
And the Jets. Yeah,
the
Giants and
Jets, of course,
Jets.
yeah.
I mean, I think in many ways 9/11, we think of baseball, and you think of George W. Bush throwing that first pitch, and because he had the World Series. The Yankees did not win that World Series, but you had that. That was the first thing, right? Because September 11th, now you're in October. But I think anything that allows people to rally together, and that's where sports, and it can sound very Pollyanna-ish. It can sound like it's pie in the sky and ridiculous, but it really is true. When you can all gather, and you referred to this about politics in D.C., with the NFL, that there is that thing where you can come together and you can feel good about your city. And I certainly remember some of those games where they'd have the fire department, the firefighters and the police and the first responders being honored, and it didn't matter who won that football game. I mean, yeah, Giants and Jets fans, of course it mattered. But in general, it's about a bigger picture here. And I think that storyline can play out in moments like that. And the NFL has a grand stage for that to happen in a wonderful way.
And you know what's sad, I think, in the ensuing 18 years, the NFL has realized that's a marketing point, and so wrapped itself in the flag and all that stuff, and it's gone beyond
the camo.
Let's do the right thing here. It's the uproar over the anthem and the kneeling and all that.
Right.
I think there's a point you got to let it go and realize it's not a marketing tool anymore.
Exactly.
No, that's good.
Well said.
It's about a bigger picture here.
As you head into the weekend, you may be thinking, wow, there is a lot going on in sports. And you're right. October is the only month where all 4 major league sports and college football are all going on at the same time. So tell Bay you can't go to the pumpkin patch. You've got games to watch. Here's your Couch Potatoes guide for the weekend. On Friday, basically October Madness with baseball on all day, and your night with Twins Yankees. If you dig the long ball, this series is for you. You are guaranteed to see homers and a score that resembles a football game. It's gonna be lit. On Saturday, Auburn takes on Florida. Think of this as an SEC elimination game. Winner will be a threat for Bama and Georgia, and the loser will be, playing in the Outback Bowl. On Sunday, it's Packers, Cowboys, Jerry's World, Dak, Rodgers. These games are always wild. This week will be no different. And we will be back next week to break it all down. Stick with Weekly Pulse, your heartbeat to what's trending in sports.